Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great day at AI and you're getting ready for a cool weekend. I wanted to kind of go over something with you to kind of make sure that we're getting all on the same page and we're communicating more efficiently with our clients. What I mean by that, and this topic is specifically to renewals. Okay, so what I want everybody to understand is that right now this is a flaw with our protocol. It has nothing to do with the team. This is a general message for everybody. A lot of it applies to commercial, but the overall content applies to everything to with analyzing a renewal. Oh, I gotta get my hair right, right? But anyway, so analyzing a renewal. So this whole message is that we need to slow down and really comprehend our renewals before we start sending out messaging. What I mean by that is I've noticed, and I'm not saying everybody does this, but I've noticed in some of our communication with clients that we have these renewal lists and teammates prepare the renewal list and they put the percent of the rate increase. And so it seems like some of us are looking at that percent rate increase and just working from there. And what I mean by that is they say, hey, they see a 12% rate increase. So they send that initial email. Hi, I'm Ty. I'll just use an example. Hi, I'm Ty. Your policy is renewing with Progressive Insurance. Your rate went up 12%. And we're going to be shopping your renewal. So that is currently how we do the message. And it's something similar. Protocol is the same for all departments. In the personal lines department, you say you're looking at a homeowner renewal, you look at the percent and you're telling the client what is going on. But I think some of us are missing the actual workflow of how to process a renewal properly. Okay. When you see a number go up, and sometimes you see a number go down, sometimes the rate goes down, your thought should always be something changed with the account. It should never be a rate increase or a rate decrease. Okay. Something has changed 99% of the time. Something has happened to that account and it's different than the year before. And so when you see the renewal, before you start communicating with your client about the rate, you have to analyze that renewal to determine what part of that number is the rate. Because maybe it's 12%, but maybe it's not. I'll give you an example. So in the commercial department, and I know in the personal lines department, there's automatic inflationary, and it may be different. Some might be 4%, some might be 6%, some of it's 8%. I know in the commercial department with Progressive and SageSure, automatically built into their policy is 8% increase every year. And from my understanding, it's not optional. It's just part of the policy. So you have to understand that if next year you look at that account and it gets loaded up and whoever loaded it says there's an 8% increase because the math is 8%, you may, if you're not comprehending the transaction, you may be emailing the client and saying, hi, I'm so and so forth, you're with the Progressive and we noticed your rate went up 8% and we're going to shop your rate. Well, if that is really what happened, there is zero rate increase. And so there's really no work for you to do. There's nothing to shop because really nothing has happened to the account. What you would do is you would go look at the account and you would say, for easy math, let's just say it's a homeowner's policy or a dwelling policy or lesser's risk policy, right? Or it's a business policy with business personal property. So it has property coverage on there, right? What you should be doing is look at that policy. And let's say last year the policy had $100,000 in coverage. If this year it has $108,000 in coverage, there's no rate increase at all. They're just paying for the 8% more in insurance they have. So that's the first part of my message. My first part of the message is go look at, you should be having the deck page, the actual deck page of what was bound after it went through underwriting. Remember, sometimes we issue a policy and then 45 days later after inspection, it adjusts a little bit, right? So you got to make sure you're looking at the real policy that actually is done, from the prior year. And you look at that and you're looking at coverages, you're looking at deductibles, and you're looking at discounts. That's your first thing. Sometimes a client might have an alarm discount and they were told that they have to re-verify it. The insurance carrier will notify them directly and say, hey, you need to send in a new alarm. And they miss it, we miss it, whatever happens. And that alarm discount was 5%. Well, the rate went up 5% because they no longer eligible for the discount. And so the quick fix would be calling the client and saying, hey, your rate went up, but it's because of the discount. You still have the alarm? You do? Okay, let me get your discount back. So we need to slow down and we really need to analyze the account. We really need to see what's going on because it's way better for a client to save them with the existing carrier than to rewrite them, because it's not just rewrite them and save the client some money. It's all the moving parts, all the new signatures, terminating the old contract, and then watching the new contract throughout the underwriting process and inspection process. So, there's a lot of moving parts there. And so it's better for us to be better analyzers up front, comprehending everything up front, and then having that a real educated communication with our client. Because what if the policy doesn't need the increase? I know that a couple of times we've been able to go back to Travelers, and we've gone back to Progressive, and we've even gone back to SafeSure and said, hey, we want to reduce back to the prior year, and they let us do it. Sometimes they might tell you need to do a 360 or whatever, but that's really what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to just rewrite people, rewrite them. What we're supposed to do is analyze really what's going on and go, hey, how do we save the client? If it's a good policy and we can save them, it's way better for the client and way better for the team to be more efficient upfront that way. Right. And then you have to think about other things that are going on. You know what I'm saying? Like an auto policy, right? I mean, think about it. Let's say the first year you wrote the auto policy, it doesn't matter if it's current, commercial, or personal. You wrote the policy and you look at the renewal log and it says that the policy went from $2,000 to $3,000. You're like, holy cow, this is a huge problem. You're thinking problem. It's already got that energy of problem. And what you really got to do is you got to go, wait a second, let's go see what happened. What happened? Why is it $3,000? And what if you go look at it and the policy now has 3 vehicles with 3 drivers, right? So it's just math. You're like, hey, that's actually rate neutral. You have 3 units with 3 drivers. Your rate went up 50%, but you have 50% more exposure. You see what I'm saying? So it's better with the messaging. The messaging would be, hey, last year your policy was this, but this year you added a vehicle and you added a driver and your policy is this, and reviewing the rate is actually still really good. Oh, and by the way, you could get a pay in full discount. You know what I'm saying? Those are the type of things that we need to be trying to do more up front instead of rewriting the account and redoing the entire transaction from, like at 100%. Because when we do that, it is a huge loss for the company time-wise, and the time-wise costs a lot of money, and it costs y'all from the ability to do what we really all want to do, which is grow the agency so we can grow bonuses, right? I mean, we all want to write more premium. So if we can comprehend and analyze our clients a little bit more upfront, we will create less stress and confusion for the client, and we'll create less work for ourselves. And so especially like for the commercial department, you really, really got to be looking at this, because if they had a work comp, we sent an email to a client that said they had like a 300% rate increase, and it really was no rate increase. I mean, you really go look at the cost per thousand, which is really what insurance is rated at. If you really go look at the cost per thousand, you can see it sometimes in the formula. In this case, it was not a rate increase. It was simply his payroll. And so what we should have communicated to the client is not that your rate went up at all. What we should have communicated to the client, last year you bought $100,000 worth of work comp payroll, and this year you bought $300,000 of work comp payroll. So they could easily see the math is equal, right? Okay, I was $1,000 for $100,000 in payroll. It's $3,000 for $300,000 in payroll. There's no rate increase there, right? They bought more coverage. Same thing with liability. You had $100,000 of liability exposure last year, and it was $1,000. You get audited, and now your sales went to $120,000, and now your premium goes to $1,200 or whatever the math ends up being. You know what I'm saying? So we are kind of defeating ourselves because we're setting our clients up to think that they've got bigger problems and they're having massive rate increases, and we're not telling them up front that last year your coverage was this, and now your coverage is this, and this is what the price is. You're right. So then if you were to have a 0 coverage, 0 audits, 0 claims, 0 tickets, that's an actual rate increase. And that's what we need to be telling our clients. But if a client had an audit, if the client had a claim, if the client got a ticket, if the client's coverage increased, those aren't rate increases. So we really, really, really need to slow down and analyze this. So I'm going to share kind of a formula with you because this was from an email. So Ty sent an email to a client, and I just did the math. I just want y'all to understand the math because in the commercial side, it gets even a little bit deeper. Okay? So you guys can see my screen here, right? So we sent an email on a client that had a Frank Crum admitted policy. So in the commercial department, we charge an agency fee when we write an account, right? So the goal is to charge one fee and hopefully they don't have to get another fee for a few years, right? So let's just say this account, year one, the client paid $2,000 for their policy. Okay. The premium was $1,750, and then we charge our agency fee of $250, not 700, $250 to even it out at $2,000 out the door price. That's really what the client wants to know is what is this really costing me out the door price? We emailed the client and said you had a 12% rate increase, and that's all we said, and basically triggering them to think, oh, I'm getting screwed over, my rate's going up, and triggering us to now run around like crazy people trying to find a savings. In the truth, the client already had a savings if we really analyze the account. Actually, what's happening in year two, if let's pretend there is a rate increase, let's just pretend there really is a rate increase of 12%. This is how you determine where the rate is. Year two, you take the pure premium, 1,750 at 12%. That increase brings the policy to $1,960. So even if this policy had a real 12% rate increase, the client would actually save money if they stayed and we didn't rewrite them because the true cost is 1,960 because there's no agency fee. So we have to think about the real out the door price, and we have to understand really what's going on with the client before we trigger them to do all this work that they got to do and then comply with and trigger us to do all the shopping and communicating that goes with it. If really what we're telling the client is not accurate, if we're not telling the client anything accurate by emailing them, telling their rate went up 12%. What we should do in this case is say, hey, great news. Your policy set to auto renew. You're with a very good insurance company. Last year, your out the door price was $2,000. This year, because you're auto renewing, you're not being rewritten, your out the door price is $1,960. So you're saving $40. We recommend staying with this carrier, because, insurance is like credit. Some of these carriers do give credits the longer you're with them. And honestly, you really shouldn't be rewriting clients on a yearly basis, not even every other year, unless there's a massive reason why. They should be staying. Usually you rewrite a client around every 3 years or so, even in a rough market like we have now. So I just want to make sure that we slow down and we comprehend really what's going on with the client before we do any work. And then that way, when we do email the client, you're telling them the real percent of the rate increase and the real coverages that they have, because we're not telling them, hey, you have 8% more coverage. I don't know if I've ever seen where we're emailing them and saying, hey, this year you have 8% more coverage and your price went up 8% because of the additional coverage. So that's what we really need to analyze is, really has something happened to the account. And I would tell you on renewals, 80% of the time, if you really slow down and you analyze it and you really, really see all the moving parts, there's probably a decent chance that it's better to just have a really good conversation with the client and just leave them where they're at. So hopefully this makes sense, and I appreciate y'all's time and have a great weekend. Thank you for everything that you do.